When we think of cities, we think of places to visit, right? Sights to see, food to try. But what if we looked at them in a totally different way? What if we treated a city like this massive living data set? Just a huge collection of points we can actually analyze. Well, today, that's exactly what we're going to do with Dubai. And this quote right here, this is the idea that kicked this whole thing off. When you're in Dubai, it just doesn't feel like things happened by accident. It really feels like every single corner, every view, every little experience has been intentionally designed, curated for a very specific effect. And it's that feeling of total design that makes it the perfect test subject for our little experiment. So here's the big question, isn't it? How do you take something as personal and subjective as ambience or beauty or just a vibe and turn it into cold, hard, objective data? Can you actually put a number on the feeling of a place? Well, we're sure gonna try. All right, so to even begin to tackle this, our first step is to just lean in and accept the main idea that in Dubai, aesthetics pretty much function like a building code. We're gonna deconstruct this whole super curated environment by treating it like a research project. I mean, just think about it for a second. The way the light hits a skyscraper at sunset, the actual texture of the sand on a beach, the sounds you hear in a mall, none of it feels random. This level of intentionality, this total design, it gives us this incredible opportunity for a whole new kind of analysis. So we're not just tourists anymore. We're basically field researchers in a lab the size of a city. Now, to do this right, we're going to need a method. So we're calling this the Warchif method. It's inspired by this idea of a researcher who saw travel as a science. It's all about looking at a place, not just for fun, but through this scientific and analytical lens, stripping away that first emotional hit to get to the raw data underneath. And that brings us to our absolute core concept, data-driven aesthetics. We're taking all the stuff that usually belongs in art or poetry, like ambience, beauty, mood, and we're treating them like they're just data points, things that we can measure, compare, and even optimize. So how do we make this actually happen? Well, it's a pretty simple three-step process, just like in science class. First, we figure out what we're even measuring, those aesthetic qualities. Second, we go out and gather the data, treating our trip not like a vacation, but like a series of experiments. And third, we process all that data to cook up a final optimized result. Okay, so we've got our theory and we've got our process, but what does it really look like to go out and gather this so-called aesthetic data when you're actually there? This right here, this is the whole mindset shift in action. See, a typical tourist has a pretty vague emotional reaction. Oh, this is nice. But the Warshif analyst, they're asking why it's nice. They don't just feel the cozy lighting, they analyze its sincerity. They don't just walk on the beach, they're measuring the granular composition of the sand. It's all about moving from a feeling to a measurement. And get this, here are some of our key metrics. And yes, they sound a little absurd, that's kind of the point. We're creating a whole new language to describe the world. Take lighting sincerity. Is the light in a cafe honest about what it's trying to do, or is it trying way too hard to manufacture a mood? Or granular sand composition. How uniform are the greens? And what does that tell you about how intentional the beach design is? And then you've got architectural harmony, soundscape consistency, even olfactory curation, what you're smelling. These become our data points. So after all this data gathering, what's the payoff? What's the final product? Well, it's this. The creation of a perfect 24-hour itinerary. But it's not optimized for your usual stuff like time or convenience. No, it's optimized for pure aesthetic perfection, based 100% on our data. And here it is. Every single step is justified by a specific metric. We're starting the morning in Al Fahidi. Why? Not just because it's historic, but because our analysis showed it has the optimal granular sand composition for quiet morning reflection. Then, in the afternoon, we're at the Foundry, a cafe that scored highest for lighting sincerity, making it the absolute perfect spot for creative focus. The evening hits its peak with the Dubai Fountain, which is just a masterpiece of calculated, synchronized sound and visuals. And we cap off the day at Atmosphere, a lounge with the highest atmospheric density we recorded, ideal for some end-of-day contemplative thoughts. And here's the really crucial point. Look, anybody can make a schedule.
This is different. This is a sequence, a story for your day where every single moment is engineered to give you a peak aesthetic experience. And it's all backed by our really unconventional research. It's travel as a science.
But this whole exercise, it's not really just about Dubai. It's about developing a new framework, a whole new lens to see and understand any environment. And once you start thinking this way, you kind of can't unsee it.
So what would the data points of Paris be? The precise angle of the rooftops? The exact decibel level of chatter in a cafe?
Or how about Tokyo? Could you measure the lumens of the neon signs in Shinjuku? Or maybe the organizational harmony of its subway system?
And here's the most important one. What about your own hometown? What are the hidden metrics, the unspoken rules that define the place you live every single day? The sincerity of the lighting in your local coffee shop? The soundscape consistency of your main street? And that is the real takeaway here. This whole data-driven approach is a tool you can use anywhere. So I'll leave you with this question. Just look around you right now. What are the invisible rules, the unspoken aesthetic codes that are shaping your experience of this very moment? Once you start trying to measure the vibe, you might be really surprised by what you find.